Like I say, I never summarize other people's biographies, other people's books, because I'll spoil it. And you'll look at me like, did you even read my book? Do you know what my book's about? Why would I make you sit through me fumbling through it? That would be terrible. So if you would, please tell esteemed audience a little bit about what happens next.
I'd love to. So what happens next is about 12-year-old Abby. Her parents own a resort in northern Wisconsin, and she is dealing with the absence of her older sister / best friend. She's always been super close to her older sister, but this particular summer, her sister has been sent away to an inpatient facility for an eating disorder. And so Abby is dealing with that, and a scientist ends up moving in next door because this huge eclipse is happening that summer, and their small resort town has been named as the place for full totality, the place to get if you want to see this eclipse. And so the scientist moves in next door, and he has a problem that he needs Abby's help with. And so he invites her to help him find something very important that he believes is hidden in her town. And they kind of go on an adventure together, and she deals with her grief over her sister. And it's just a very sweet contemporary sibling middle grade story.
So who is the ideal reader for this one?
I would say the ideal reader, well, the ideal age is between 8 and 13, but I would say it's any middle grade reader who really loves contemporary stories with big feelings. Those were always kind of the books that I loved growing up. Like, I was not a huge fantasy reader. I wasn't super into like magic. I wanted stories about real people doing real things. And so that is definitely an ideal reader for this, but also anyone with a slightly nerdy side, because Abby is a huge astronomy geek and she loves Star Wars. And so there's a lot of Star Wars talk in here. So if you do have a Star Wars fan, but you're trying to get them to maybe read more contemporary literature, this might be a good fit for that as well.
And are you an astronomy geek who loves Star Wars?
I am not an astronomy geek. I do love Star Wars. I enjoy like learning about the stars, but I never got very good grades in science in school. I was more of an English girl, but I am obsessed with Star Wars. There's a new Clone Wars episode right now that I'm watching after this interview. Can't wait on Disney Plus. So yes, I am a Star Wars geek.
When I got frustrated with Animal Crossing, I loaded. It's we'll see how it goes after this, but I've loaded Jedi Fallen Order, so that's going to be an amazing experience. I'm excited.
Okay, I'll tell my husband. He's a big fan.
So, what's your favorite Star Wars?
Oh gosh, that's a hard question. Honestly,
I know, just straight to the throat. Oh my god.
I know. I have like weird answers for this. I think my favorite Star Wars movie is Rogue One, which is probably not a popular answer, but I love Rogue One. I love all the characters, and I'm also a new Star Wars fan. I hadn't seen it until 3 years ago. I hadn't seen any Star Wars at all, so I'm in the modern era. But honestly, my favorite Star Wars thing is probably the Clone Wars, the TV show. I absolutely love it. My husband had to make me watch it because I was like, this is a cartoon. This was on Cartoon Network when it was on TV. Like, what? But the storytelling is so deep and complex. I cannot believe that show is for children. Like, I'm not letting my kids watch that for many years. So, yeah, I'd say the Clone Wars and Rogue One. Kind of weird answers.
No, how did you manage to grow up in the United States and avoid Star Wars?
I think I had a really big bias against it because, again, I wasn't super into fantasy stuff. And so I thought it was like an alien story. I was like, that's not really for me. But then I got married to a man who is obsessed. Like, he goes to the Star Wars conventions. We have huge bookshelves. Like, the bookshelves behind you, we have 2 of those sides full of Star Wars books and comics, like just Star Wars. He loves Star Wars Legos. The man just loves Star Wars. And so I, for his birthday one year, told him I would watch any Star Wars thing he wanted, like a movie or a show or whatever. And he showed me the first Star Wars thing that I ever saw was a Clone Wars arc, like 4 episodes of Clone Wars. And it just blew my mind. And suddenly I wanted all of it. I like the prequels. Again, unpopular opinion, but we watched those. I read some of the books and I just fell in love with it because I think it's not really this space story. It's just a very real emotional story that happens to be in space. That's kind of how I think about it.
Well, that must have been just an incredibly happy day for your husband.
Yes. It's very, and now we've changed to where I'm like, when are we watching Clone Wars? When are we fitting this into the day?
And I think that, honestly, the bias against the prequels is from people that grew up with the original trilogy. If you don't have that, then they're fine movies. They're about the same as the previous. Like there are parts that make you go, ugh, and the acting is bad. But that was true for the first three.
Yeah, and my husband tells me, like, when Star Wars comes out, no one likes it. Like, he was showing me the bad reviews for Empire Strikes Back, and then people loved it. And then the prequels came out, and people were mad, but now people like it. And now the sequels are out, and people are mad. He's like, people just get mad at Star Wars when it comes out, and they always come around.
I never get mad. I was disappointed by Rise of the Jedi. That's the only one that's come out in theaters that I've only seen once.
Yeah.
And that was once was enough. I get
it. Yeah.
Maybe I'll catch it again sometime. All right, back to what happens next. Sorry, I couldn't resist.
No, that's awesome.
So another question I had for you. Let's start with how long, what was the process of writing this book? How long did it take you start to finish?
I think that this book probably took me about 3 months to write and then 3 months to edit before I showed it to my agent. So I already had an agent because the book that I signed with Alex for did not sell. It was out on the market for about maybe like 9-10 months. And it didn't sell. And so we were talking about next projects, next ideas, and this kind of morphed out of a few different thoughts. But I'm kind of a seat of my pants writer. I don't do a ton of plotting in advance. And so editing usually takes me just as long, if not usually longer than drafting. And so, yeah, I'd say total it was probably about 6-7 months.
Gotcha. That's with seat of your pants drafting and editing total?
Yes.
And did you have a pretty close to final version for submission at the end of 7 months?
Yeah, I don't think I did too many edits with Alex, and we sent it out, and then I feel like it went through more edits with my actual editor. We changed some things up, but like between me showing it to Alex and Alex putting it on submission, I mean, I don't think hardly anything changed.
Did Alex have some input in the early planning stages?
Yeah, he did. We talked about a few different ideas. I think I sent him a document with a few different story pitches, and this one was like, something happens with a girl and this kind of crazy guy moves in next door and they go on some kind of adventure. That was like my pitch. I'm very seat of my pants. And so I don't like to have a huge developed plot line to work with, or it kind of stresses me out. I'd rather just have like a general idea or feeling and go from there. And I think he was like, great. I specifically remember actually, though, his input was originally, I thought that Leo Lackmore, the scientist that moves in next door, I was going to make him like a movie star. And he was like, don't do that. Like, movie star to small town is just kind of tropey. People see that a lot. Like, make him someone else famous, but not an actor. I just remember that was like his specific critique.